I want to talk about the fifth commandment from John Friend's book, Doctrines of Christian Life, on the fifth commandment, which is honor your father and mother. Honor your father and mother in Hebrew, that term is also honor. Honor is like inferior to the superior and also to the equals as well. All right, based on Westminster's Catechism. So I want to talk about the disabled people, disability. How do we treat them in our society, in our churches? It's excellent section on this. He writes this: if we are to regard with dignity and worth of each other in giving honor to each one another and to rejoice in each other's gift and advancement, then we must treat disabled people properly. All right. So he wrote this that he quoted Nancy Ireland, who wrote, "The history of the church interaction with the disabled is at best an ambiguous one. Rather than being a structure for empowerment, the church has more often supported the society's structures and attitudes. They have treated people with disabilities and objects of pity and paternalism. For many disabled persons, the church has been a city on a hill, physically inaccessible and socially inhospitable." Period. This is so astounding and it's very insightful. It is true that there's a tendency for Christians, churches, suddenly you see disabled people come to church in a society. The church suddenly, the Christians of the churches suddenly have this special reaction, trying so hard to help. In a way, these disabled people becomes objects of pity. Now, that's the last thing they need, because disabled people needs help, yes, but they need encouragement to do what they can still do. But if you treat them as objects of pity, you completely demolish their morale, so to speak. This is one of the big things I got from John Friend's book here. Now, there's certain thing I want to pick out and talk about it, okay? The church can minister and encourage through the love of Christ, okay? So certainly church people need to be taught much more about people with various disabilities. They need to know the difference between helping and over-helping. That's the word, over-helping. They need to know how to communicate. But above all, I totally agree, they need to be motivated to reach out. Now, this is very, very true. People need motivation to reach out to the disabled people. The motivation is found in Scripture. Now, this is kind of a classic comparison. Basically, Frame is really comparing the physical disablement and the spiritual disablement. So, like number one, all people are made in the image of God. Disablement is part of the curse that comes after the fall. We get that. But the curse affects all of us, not just people severely disabled. All of us experience pain and frustration in the fallen world. It is not until we recognize our own disablements that we can reach out to those who are physically disabled. Now, this is a really good quote. Did you hear that? Not until we recognize our own disability. Okay, not disability. The better word he used is disablements, that we can reach out to those who are physically disabled. So we all experience some kind of disablement, he's arguing, all right? It may not be physical, but it could be emotional, mental. It could be spiritual, discouragement and really frustrated and the challenges we face in the family, etc., whatnot. So until we recognize we face disablement and challenges and brokenness in our own lives, we cannot reach out to those who are physically disabled. Now, sin itself is a disability from which we cannot escape apart from God's free grace. In the Old Testament, God has a special concern for the disabled. He prohibits abuse of them. He gives them a prominence in his redemptive promises. Jesus showed his concern for physical healing as well as for healing in other dimensions. Jesus spent much of his time with the disabled, Luke chapter 5, etc. The leprous guys is sort of disabled, and everybody's running away from him. But Jesus came and touched him and healed him. The crippled, nobody helped him. Jesus came and touched him and healed him. Okay, there's a Beatrice, this author points out that all human character, and this is a good one. Beatrice points out that all the major human characters in the scriptures are no heroes first. Rather, they are weak, marginalized, unlikely candidates for any noteworthy achievements. That is true. Look at Saul. It's like nobody. God picked him out, became the king. Look at David, who was a shepherd boy. God picked him out. He's like unlikely. Look at Moses, who was stumbling, stammering. And God picked him up and used him to be the greatest, mightiest prophet of all time, to deliver 3 million Jews across the Red Sea. What a powerful act of God. The greatest miracles ever witnessed by humanity in the whole universe is that. About 5,000 years ago, they walked across the Red Sea. All right? So you know that so Moses was desperately weak. So, to accept God's grace, so that's why Beatrice is arguing that most people like Moses, and these are the guys who are weak, marginalized, unlikely candidates for noting achievements. Spiritual brokenness is linked with physical weakness. If you could do that connection, to accept God's grace is first to recognize ourselves as desperately weak, unable to do anything for ourselves. That is absolutely true. That's the power of the gospel. The grace of God empowers, transforms us to be somebody else. Really powerful. Okay? The worst neglect of the disabled comes from its desire to appear strong without uncomfortable reminders of his need. But those who come to Christ find it in the disabled a picture of their own weakness. Beatrice says people with disabilities are essential in the church, since their presence reminds that we're all weak and broken before a holy and compassionate God. So that is a message of the fifth commandment. Honor your parents. It means honor your equals, and also honor those who are beneath you, so to speak, beneath you, underneath you. They call inferior, in a sense. The disabled people are the sort of inferior because of this physical disablement. So remember that all of us have some kind of disablement to begin with. Spiritually, may not be physical. Remember, Moses was stammering. And it is this kind of people, marginalized, weak candidate, God picked up by his grace, transformed into the most powerful man on earth, more powerful than the most supposedly in the world's view and sight, the most powerful man on earth, Pharaoh. Moses defeated Pharaoh. Can you believe that? This is how it works. So that's the fifth commandment on disability.